Hey guys, Carl from Purple Moose Plays. Today I'm taking a look at Chronicles of Crime 1900 from Lucky Duck Games and designers David Securo and Wojciech Rakowski. Chronicles of Crime is a cooperative criminal investigation game that uses a unique app to search crime scenes for clues and then scan cards moving from location to location, interviewing witnesses and potential suspects along the way, with the ultimate goal of putting together the clues and solving the case. In this latest installment of the game, Chronicles of Crime 1900, you take on the role of a journalist in France who happens to have a penchant for solving crimes and also just so happens to have an uncle who's a police commissioner that gives him a little bit of extra access to cases that he wouldn't normally have access to. This version also brings along this unique puzzle deck that sort of adds a physical puzzle solving aspect like you might expect to find in escape room games. Due to the nature of this game, I am going to be playing through just the tutorial case of this game for my playthrough. But even with that, there might be some small spoilers in there. If you don't want to see the tutorial case and you'd rather play through it yourself, feel free to use the timestamps below to skip ahead to my final thoughts. But I will be playing through it, and if you're interested to see how the game plays, definitely stick around through the playthrough. With all that being said, I do need to mention that I did receive a copy of this game from the publisher for review, but I will do my best as always to offer my honest opinions on the game. So let's head down to the table, see how this game plays, and I'll meet you back up here to let you know what I think. To set up a game of Chronicles of Crime 1900, begin by placing out the evidence board on the table, and then lay out all of the other cards. This will be your starting location, the newspaper office that will always get placed out on the table, and the rest of the location cards are here. Evidence cards, character cards, special item cards, and puzzle cards all go out on the table. The rest of the setup for the game is all handled by the app. So I'm going to show you how the app launches on my phone, and then I'll switch to a picture-in-picture of the phone screen itself. So we're going to launch the Chronicles of Crime app on the phone. And when it's launched, we're going to be playing Chronicles of Crime 1900, so we'll start by selecting 1900. And in this case, we will be playing the tutorial mission. So we'll click tutorial. You will have to download the case for the first time, but as I've already played through this once, it's already down, so all I need to do is press the play button. So that when we press the play button, the tutorial screen will launch. Before I get into anything about the game, the majority of the game is going to be using these sort of QR codes that you'll notice on all of the components, and we're going to be using the app to scan these QR codes for everything that we do. A lot of that will be explained in the sort of wording or the writing of the tutorial, so I will explain things as we go through the game. So let's go ahead and go through the tutorial on the app. It says, "Welcome to the Chronicles of Crime 1900 tutorial. Disclaimer, this scenario is an introduction to the game. It explains how to play without giving you a real investigative challenge," which is why I'm showing you this one. I don't want to spoil any of the actual cases in the game, but I would like you to see how the game plays through. So we're going to tap next to start. Chronicles of Crime 1900 is a cooperative game in which all the players work together to solve a crime. You play as Victor Lavelle, a journalist solving crimes during the Belle Epoque in Paris and writing about them in a newspaper. In case the text displayed on the app won't fit the screen, drag it up and down to see the remaining part. You can also tap this menu icon in the lower left corner as it shows, and if you do, you'll see there's a button that says History. If you click History, it will allow you to go back and see things that you've already seen before, and that'll be very helpful if you want to refresh something you saw. Because a big thing that's going to happen here, and I don't remember if it will explain it in the tutorial, so I will right now. Every time we scan a piece of evidence or we ask a question of somebody at one of the locations, it's going to cost us 5 minutes in-game. And every time we move from one location to another, it's going to cost us 20 minutes. And the amount of time we take is going to affect our final score, but it will also, at some point, shut the game down if you've taken too much time. You're sort of forced to complete it within a certain amount of time. So if you don't remember something, it's not worth going back to the place. You can simply open the history menu and reread what you've already seen before. All right, so now it says start by setting up all the game components, which we've already done. And now it says separate Charlotte's character card, which here is character card number 1. So this is Charlotte's character card, and it tells us to put it in the slot here in the newspaper office. And everything else should stay here in a face-down pile. Okay, so Charlotte Hebot, which is this woman right here, she's going to be basically helping us solve the puzzles. And something that's unique about this version of Chronicles of Crime is that there are actual physical puzzles we will be solving in the game. So she's going to be in every case that we play, and we can actually scan her when we're in this location. First, to find out if we have enough of the puzzle cards to complete a specific puzzle. And then she will also offer a hint for that puzzle. And if we still don't understand the puzzle, she will also give you the solution to the puzzle if you really need that to happen. Now, every time you do get a hint or a solution, it will deduct some points from your final score of the game. All right, then it's basically telling us to separate all of the other cards out on the table, which we've already done. And then we are ready to play. So here we go. Early in the morning, you arrive at the editorial office of Les Nouvelles de Paris. Charlotte is already at her desk, giving you a welcoming nod. Just as you sit down, the voice of the editor-in-chief, Jonas J. Jacquemart, summons you to his office. And now this says character 2, which means we're going to reveal character 2. So this is Jonas J. Jacquemart, who is the sort of head of our, or editor-in-chief of our newspaper. And we're going to place him at this location. Now they would get slotted down in here like this, but because it's going off the screen, I'll just put them up a little bit higher so we can see like that. So it tells us take the character and put it on the board. Don't get too comfortable in that chair, says Monsieur Jacquemart. I have an assignment for you. I've set up an interview with employees of the local telegraph office, located not far from here. Now it says that this is location L. So we're going to go through this stack of locations, and these are double-sided, and we need to find that location L. It's likely that I'm going to run out of space on the screen for all of the locations that we're visiting. So I will swap locations in and out as needed. But for right now, we can fit this on the screen. This is location L. We see here up in the corner, L. And I'll place that right there for now. And we know that this is a local telegraph office. Go there and ask about their work. See what they think about the telephone taking over the world. So Jonas J. Jacquemart is your employer. He gives you new assignments and waits until midnight for you to finish your work on each article. So this is that hard timer that I was talking about before. We always need to finish what we're doing by midnight. So he's a recurring character that you meet every time you play this game. A location L was mentioned, so we place that out on the table as we've already done. And anytime we see that location symbol, we're going to put out another location on our table. And if we want to travel to the location, as I mentioned, we're going to use the app to scan the QR code in the corner of that location, which it's telling us we should do right now. So on the screen, you'll see there's a camera. So I'm going to take that location, and we will scan by putting the QR code in and touching the screen, and it will take us to that location. So it says you walk a couple of streets and arrive at the entrance of the telegraph office. The sign on the door says it's closed, but it should be open by now. Peeking through the window, you see someone is inside and decide to try your luck. You enter. Inside, you find two men standing over a dead body, number 23. So again, we need to find card number 23. And we would slot this into one of the spaces on the board, but because this is the dead body, I kind of like to keep them separate. So this is our dead body. We need to figure out who killed him, I'm assuming. We'll find out in a minute when we read the story, but I'm going to put him sideways on the location just so I remember he's not a character that I can interact with. All right, so we find two men standing over this dead body. One of them is wearing a police uniform and you recognize him immediately. It's your uncle, Commissioner Norbert Lavelle, number 3. So this guy right here is my uncle, who is a police commissioner, and he is at the scene of the crime. So we'll put him down there. Victor, what a surprise, says your uncle. What are you doing here? The other person, a middle-aged manager wearing glasses, number 9. All right, so this must be the manager of the telegraph office. We'll slot him in at that location as well. He appears too overwhelmed by the situation to speak. All right, so more characters have been mentioned. Take their cards and place them on location board L, which is what we've done now. If you want to interact with a character, as I mentioned before, scan the QR code on the card. And for now, we're going to try talking to our Uncle Norbert. So same thing, we're going to take that card, and we're going to use that camera on the app to scan the card. And now we're interacting with that character. Victor, I didn't know what kind of story you wanted to write here, but I have something better. A real mystery, that's certain. I'd like another keen pair of eyes to look around. Maybe you'll notice something interesting. Police Commissioner Norbert Lavelle is your paternal uncle. He often shares details about the Parisian criminal world, and you help him with his investigations. He's another recurring character. You are now in interrogation mode with Norbert, and can ask him about people or objects by scanning their cards. You're only allowed to use cards that you've already, or have already been revealed to you. So I'm going to start by asking him about himself, the body, and the manager. So once I've started this conversation, you'll see at the top of the screen it says Norbert Lavelle, right? So this is meaning we're already in a conversation with him. So anything we scan in now is going to be something that we're asking him about. Now, I do need to mention you cannot ask about a location. If I scan a location right now, it's going to ask me, would you like to get out of this conversation and move to the new location? So you can't ask questions about locations, only about items or people. So again, it asked me first to ask him about himself. So we'll do that. This isn't the first case you've assisted on, Victor. I always welcome your help, especially now the Exposition Universelle World Fair is keeping many of my officers busy. All right, then we're going to ask about the dead body. Your uncle points to the stairs with broken railings. Was this an accident or a murder? Victor, I want you to find out if anyone was involved with this man's death. And if that's the case, where is the perpetrator now? Your mission has been described to you. You need to figure out what happened in the telegraph office and find whoever killed the man. These are the things you'll be asked about when you decide to finish the game. All right, so at the end, you're going to go back to the newspaper office, talk to your editor-in-chief, and sort of answer a series of questions based on what you've learned during the game. So right now, it's telling us that we need to figure out what happened, who killed the man, and sort of more information about the crime itself. So while we're talking to people and finding evidence and so on, we need to answer those kinds of questions, as at the end of the game, our editor will ask those questions. And the more questions that we get right, and also the less time we take to figure out those questions, the better our final score is going to be. According to the manager, number 9, the person working here during the night shift was a telegraph operator named Agnes. Let's find out more about her. All right, so we need to find Agnes, which is 17. And you're going to see in a minute, the app is going to tell me because she's not working there now, we don't know where she is. So she's actually going to get slotted in this bottom row right here as a person who's sort of at a location that we're not sure of, which is what the app is now telling us. We know that there's a character. We can talk and ask people about her, but we can't talk to her until we find the location where she is. You may want to look around the crime scene and see if you can find anything useful. To search the office, end this conversation by tapping goodbye, and then we're going to tap the search the scene button. We have 40 seconds to look at a scene in virtual reality. And then when we're doing that, I'll show you that in just a minute. You're actually going to physically look in a 360-degree view on the screen of your device by literally moving around. It's going to use the sort of motion detector of your device to move the camera as you move. And you're actually going to physically search the scene of the crime to look for clues. And while you're doing that, this stack of evidence cards is going to have very vague sort of categories like vehicles, food, decorative items, firearms. And we're going to, while we're looking at the crime scene, pick out the cards that match what we see and scan them afterwards to sort of find clues and find evidence to help us solve the crime. And then when the time runs out, you can do it again. And if you work playing with somebody, they can also take a look. But every time you do that, it's going to dock more time from what you're spending on the thing. So the fewer times you look at the crime scene, the better. But if you miss something, definitely you can go back and look again at any time. So we're going to say goodbye. And now we're going to press this button up here that says search the scene. But I'm actually going to do this a little bit differently. I'm playing this game on my phone. But I actually prefer to use the bigger screen of my iPad. So when we select search the scene, it's actually going to give us the option to use search the scene with VR glasses if you have them, without VR glasses if you don't, or you can do what it says here, play on viewer device. And to do that, I'm actually going to open the same app on my iPad. So you'll see on my iPad, if I go into options, I can choose set up as viewer device. And I don't have any kind of goggles or VR glasses for this iPad, so I'm playing without VR. And now it's going to say it's waiting for the scene. So if I go into that phone and I press play on viewer device, we should see that that device pops up. And if I click on that device, it's going to load on my iPad. So now you can see it's on my iPad and we're moving it around. So here I see a telegraph machine. On the ground there's a bag. I see some kind of broken piece of furniture. Maybe some kind of buttons on the ground. He's holding a bow tie. I see blood. So definitely furniture, definitely blood, definitely clothing. There's a box that looks interesting, a bag that looks interesting, a book with some papers, a photograph that looks like it might be of importance. All right, so we've got photos, book or papers. I've got a box. I've got flowers. I've got a bag. I've got furniture. I've got blood. I've got clothing. And now it's counting down. And again, if we wanted to do it again on the cell phone, we could press yes. But in this case, we're not going to do that. So we're going to say no. And now we're going to go through these cards and find all the things that I just saw while I was in there. So we definitely found papers. I definitely saw blood. I don't know if those white things were medicine or buttons, so I'm going to hold on to that maybe. Furniture for sure. Photo, we saw a photograph on the table. What else do we got? Books, there was definitely a book on the table. Clothing, he had a bow tie in his hand and maybe buttons on the ground or maybe pills, I couldn't tell. So we're going to scan clothes first, and if not, it'll tell us maybe we should try medicine. There was a bag on the ground for sure. And there were flowers on the table, so I'm going to take this plants. And I think that might be it. Oh, no, there was that empty box on the desk. We definitely need to keep that. And I believe that's it. So I'm going to set those aside. And now we're going to scan each of these pieces of evidence separately. And the app will tell us if it's important or not important. And if it's important, it'll give us as much information about it as it can. So let's start scanning these in. We'll start with boxes. All right, it says a flat wooden box. When you open it, you see the inside is padded and used to hold some kind of jewelry, which is now missing. So we're going to put 36 back into the deck because the box is not important. But instead, in here, number 11, it says jewelry. So we're going to take that jewelry, but because we don't have that jewelry, because the jewelry is missing, we're going to place it in one of these blue slots. And the app will tell us that in just a second. Right, so we should put it in the blue slot when we don't have it. It goes in the red slot if we have found it or if we're actually holding that object. So put it in the blue slot. All right, let's find some more clues. We had some flowers. A vase with a bouquet of fresh roses. So we're going to put that on a red area because that's something that we actually found or we do have. All right, great. You found 2 clues. Keep searching. There are 5 more clues. It doesn't always tell you that. That's only for this tutorial that it's giving you that, so you know that you're doing the right thing as you're trying out this tutorial. So after you're done searching, we're going to ask Charles, the manager of this telegraph company, about the things that we've found. And again, everything we do takes time. Any scan of an item or a conversation thread is going to take 5 minutes. And anytime we travel from location to location, it's going to take 20 minutes of in-game time. All right, so let's find the rest of the items. There was definitely a bag on the floor, so let's go ahead and scan that. A plain-looking woman's purse. You search inside and find a receipt from some groceries with a delivery address for a house on the city outskirts. All right, so we've got a bag that belongs to a woman. We don't know who. It could be the woman who was working there last night. And we're going to add location M, which is the address of somebody's house. And I will put this off to the side over here, and we'll move it if we need to get it back on camera. All right, next we definitely saw papers and a book on the desk, so I'm going to go ahead and scan papers. Numerous papers are scattered on the desk, a book among them. Put card 2 back and try scanning books and magazines instead. That's what I expected might happen, so we've already got that books and magazines card here. So let's scan that and see what happens. On the desk you find a book, a copy of the novel Around the World in 80 Days, written by Jules Verne. It's a first edition from 1873. You flip through the pages and discover a loose piece of paper with Morse code printed across it. And this says question mark 2. Question mark 2, or question mark, refers to these puzzle cards. So we found our first puzzle card, which is card 2. And it says in the story that it's a loose piece of paper with Morse code printed on it. So as you can see right here, this is simply just a key for Morse code. So we're going to assume that at some point we're going to find something that has Morse code on it, and we're going to need to use this to figure that out. So I'm just going to set that up here for now, and we'll come back to it if need be. All right, and we found the clue, which was the books and magazines. And yes, we're going to use that to solve puzzles later on. And we can always bring up those puzzles by scanning their QR cards when we're talking to someone. So that could be very helpful. All right. Now, it says here that when we're done, finished at this location, we could go back and ask her about it. I'm not going to do that, but I will tell you again. When I talk to her, if I scan this, it's going to tell me if I have enough pieces to solve that puzzle. And if I do have enough pieces to solve that puzzle, she's going to offer me a hint for that puzzle. And if I take the hint and I still don't understand, I could scan one more time and she'll give me the solution to that puzzle. I've got 3 more clues to find. All right. I know that there was some kind of broken furniture on the ground next to the body. All right, it says there are many cabinets, drawers, tables, and desks. Each desk has its own electric telegraph station. There's nothing unusual about it. Among the papers, you found a book. Okay, so the wooden thing on the ground is not furniture then. In that case, we may need the card that said melee weapon, because that might tell us something. But I'm going to wait on that until after we've scanned the blood, because it might tell me some more information about that. So we definitely found blood. When you examine the body more closely, you find bruises on his face. You notice he's clutching a bow tie in one fist. Shirt buttons. Okay, so they were buttons and not medicine, so that goes back. Shirt buttons scattered around the floor. To find out more about these objects, scan the clothes category card, which we've got set here, so we will do that next. And we found a clue, blood and bruises. All right, so we've got 2 more to find. I'm going to scan that clothes card. The clenched hand of the victim holds a bow tie. A few shirt buttons are scattered around the floor. The victim's shirt is covered in blood but is not missing any buttons. That's another clue. All right, so somebody's missing some buttons. Whoever this guy fought before he died, probably. All right, let's see if melee weapon gets me that wooden piece off the ground. There's nothing in this category here. Okay. We'll scan photos and cameras. A framed photo of 2 people, a young woman and a middle-aged woman, is resting on the desk. So we've got 17 here, and it says now that we've got 6. So in that picture is this woman and this older woman as well. Okay, that's the final clue. You can ask about any of them while in interrogation mode with the characters. All right, so it did mention before that we should talk to the manager now. So I'm going to scan the manager's card again. And he comes to talk to us. This whole situation is very unfortunate for our office. I hope I can help. All right, so let's find out more about the man who's actually been killed. I've never seen this man before. It's not one of our employees. Poor lad. I hope it was just an accident. But what was he doing here in the office before opening hours? All right. So we do know that this woman works there, so I'd like to find out more about her. Agnes is a good employee. I've never had any complaints about her. She's eager to work and even takes the night shifts. She lives in an apartment in the workers' district, F. So that means this apartment that we found that's connected to the bag is not going to be hers, I guess. So we're going to find F, which is the apartment of Agnes. I don't know that she's there, but I'm suspecting that she is. So we'll go there soon, I think. And let's see if he knows who the other person in the photo is. He does not. Okay. Then, let's see if he knows anything about the bag. I bet he does not, but let's see. Oh, that belongs to Agnes. I wouldn't dare look through a woman's personal items, but perhaps these circumstances call for extreme measures. Okay, so that is Agnes's bag. Let me go back through the history because I don't remember what it said about location M. All right, so location M says there's delivery address on a receipt for groceries to location M. But the bag is owned by Agnes, who lives in an apartment at location F. So I'm not sure what that means, but we'll keep talking to the manager for a minute. I'm curious to know if he knows anything about the books or the flowers, or potentially the jewelry that's missing. I've heard that's a good story. Maybe I've heard it from Agnes. It seems you're missing something. Try asking the manager about the roses and jewelry. That was my next plan, so that's what we're going to do anyway. All right. I don't remember seeing them here when I left the office yesterday. It's Agnes's desk. Another gift from her admirer, perhaps. All right, so now we've got flowers from an admirer. So we know she had an admirer, but we don't know who that is. So we're going to take this special item card, which basically tells us there's some kind of mysterious person we don't know about. This is not something we have. This is just information we've got. So that's going to go down here in the blue section. And let's ask jewelry, and we can ask him a little bit more about the admirer to see if he knows anything. It could be that our dead body is that admirer. All right, the box found on Agnes's desk was empty. It's a gift she received from an admirer. At least that's what I've heard. All right, so that box of jewelry and the flowers came from whoever this admirer is. All right, he says, I don't want to spread any rumors, but I've heard that Agnes has an admirer. It's a telegraph operator from another city, from an office in another city, but I don't know who it could be. If I knew his name, I could check our registry and find the right person. All right, so we have to find the name of this admirer, and when we do, we can come back and ask him more information. Yeah, so when we come back here, we're going to tell him we want to find out more or something like that, and you'll see there's a sort of a selection that we're going to ask. All right. In that case, I don't think there's anything else we can do at this location, so I want to go and talk to Agnes. So we're going to scan location F over here. Now I said when we're in a conversation, you're going to see something pop up that like this one that you see right now that says, are you sure you want to exit interrogation mode and move to Agnes's apartment? I'm going to say yes. All right, so we're moving to F. It says, you eventually find an apartment in the workers' neighborhood. A small, slender woman opens the door, looking very surprised to see you. So now we do know that Agnes is in location F, so I will relocate her card to that location, which is what it's explaining to us right now. So let's talk to Agnes and see what she has to say. What brings you here, monsieur? Well, let's ask her about the dead body, see what she knows. His name is Horace Granger, and he's the youngest son of the Granger family. They are rich Parisians who own factories all over the country. I used to work in the Granger's villa as a servant. Okay, so M now we know is the Granger's villa where the dead man is from, and that's where the groceries were being delivered to. But that slip was in Agnes's bag, so clearly Agnes is connected in some way. Back then, Horace harassed me constantly, trying to corner me and get me alone. It was extremely frightening. I told him that I wasn't interested and to leave me alone. It got so bad that I had to quit. He found out where I worked and came to the office yesterday night when I was alone. He attacked me. I tried to push him away, but he tripped and fell down. I swear that was what happened. All right, so it tells me I should go there and talk to Charlotte. It's probably going to keep saying that unless we do, but let's finish what we know here and see what we can do. All right, I'm going to ask her about the flowers because that was given to her. Maybe about the books and magazines, definitely about the jewelry, maybe about the admirer. Let's see what we got. Yes, I like roses. That's not a crime, is it? Well, that was not very helpful. How about the missing jewelry? Yes, that belongs to me. It's valuable, so I gave it to my aunt. Okay, so number 6 is her aunt. I didn't want to keep it here, especially as I'm working most of the time. All right, how about her bag? Why was it there? And why did it have his address in it? Okay, that's not helpful. She told us she just left it there when she ran away. Okay, how about books and magazines? Whose book is that? All right, so the book is hers. It says, it's mine. I believe that in the future, everyone will be able to travel around the world, not only wealthy English gentlemen. And yes, I was using this Morse code cheat sheet as a bookmark. All right, so that's not very helpful right now. We don't have a whole lot of information, but let's see if we can find anything out about this mysterious guy. She says it's just a rumor. We talk on the wire sometimes, but it's nothing serious. All right, so it's clear to me that Agnes is not going to help me very much. And just to keep the app from telling me to keep going back to the newspaper office, I'm going to do that first right now. And I will show you how Charlotte works. I'm not ready to tap to solve the case. If we were ready to solve the case, we would press the button here and answer the questions it asks, but of course we're not. So I'm going to scan Charlotte and you'll see. She says she's happy to help with any kind of puzzle. So we're going to scan this puzzle and we'll see what she says. You haven't found all the elements required to solve the puzzle. I figured as much, so I didn't want to come here, but the app kept telling me to do it, so we've done it. So let's go over to M and see what we can find out at Granger's village. Yes. You travel to the outskirts of Paris looking for the address you found. Eventually you come across a quiet alley surrounded on all sides by rich villas. When you knock on the door, it's opened by a servant. Okay, so Agnes's aunt is still a servant for the Grangers. So she's at M. You explain the reason for your visit and she disappears for a moment. Then she informs you the owner of the house is willing to speak with you. All right, so we've got a new character, number 21. We'll put them as well. I don't know who she is, but I'm assuming she's related to the deceased person as well. But let's start by talking to Agnes first. Is there anything I can do? Yes, let's ask her about the guy who died. Monsieur Horace always went too far when it came to Agnes. She rejected his advances constantly, but he was relentless. Can you imagine? A tiny girl like her and this strong man with God knows what intent. I stepped in more than once. My presence discouraged him, at least in the short term. His attitude was one of the reasons Agnes quit and moved away. But if you're looking for a suspect, it's not my sweet Agnes. She couldn't hurt anyone, especially not someone twice her size. All right, so we can't imagine that it was Agnes who did it because now we find out he's much bigger than she is. And even if she pushed him, I don't think that would have killed her. Let's see if she knows anything about the jewelry or the secret admirer. All right, you're the second young man to ask about Agnes's jewelry today. The other one came in the morning saying Agnes asked him to fetch the medallion. His face was bruised and his clothes were torn. Sounds to me like the guy who was fighting with Horace. I asked him to leave. But from what you're saying, the police are interested in Agnes. Is she a suspect? I don't believe they care about finding the right person. They care only for the rich and well-born, not for us common folk. You, on the other hand, look like a decent young man. Please take it and prove that my Agnes is innocent. Great, so we found the jewelry. And it says that that's puzzle card number 1, which I'll put down to the side for a minute. Let's finish this conversation and we'll have a better look at that puzzle card. I don't know where she got it, but she wanted me to keep it for her. When I asked about it, she said something like blues are short and reds are long. I don't know what that means. That's our clue to Morse code, because Morse code is all about shorts and longs. So we're going to look at that in just a minute, remembering blues are short, reds are long. All right, so we found a puzzle, used the puzzle to figure things out. We can always ask Charlotte at the newspaper office if we need help. And now we're going to move the jewelry card here because we've just received it. We actually have that piece of jewelry now. Great. Let's ask the aunt about the secret admirer, because that's probably the man who came to visit. And if she knows who he is, we might be able to go talk to the manager about him. All right, an admirer? She never tells me anything. When she worked here in the villa, Monsieur Horace often made advances on Agnes. She always rejected him, but never gave up. I don't know about any other admirer. All right. Now, before we talk to the woman at this house, I want to take a look at this Morse code message. So we've got this card. And we found out that blues are short and reds are long. Let me double check that, but I'm pretty sure that's what it said. Yes, blues are short and reds are long. All right, so we've got our Morse code card here. And I'm going to guess that the whites are the spaces in between letters. So I'm going to start here and go around the heart and see what happens. So I've got short, long. Short, long looks like A. Then we've got long, long, short. Long, long, short is G. Long, short is N. Short is E. And short, short, short is S. That's Agnes. Which means the other side must be somebody else's name. I've got short, long, long, long. Short with 3 longs is J. Then we've got a short, which is E, short long, which is A, and long short, which is N. So I'm guessing that the guy's name is Gene. So we're going to have to go back to the main guy, or the manager at the telegraph office, and ask him about someone named Gene. I'm not sure I care right now about talking to this woman because I don't see anything that she's going to help with for right now. I think it's more important that we find out more about this Gene guy. So I'm going to come over here and scan that location. It says that my uncle is no longer there. So this is important, that while you're playing the game, sometimes characters will move from one location to another. And sometimes it's really important that this happens because you may need to do something when somebody's missing or do something when somebody specific is at a certain location. All right, so we do need to do this by scanning number 2 to find out more information. So we are going to scan number 2. Whoops, sorry. First I have to talk to him. And that's where we have to be careful. When I scanned that, I did lose time even though it was unimportant at the moment. So we got to be careful what we're scanning while we play. All right, let's see how he can help. We're going to scan the secret admirer again. And it asks me, do you know his name? We do. It is Gene. All right, so the first letter is F to J is J. And his first name should be Gene or John. I think this is it. John Fossey is working at our office in Lille. That's interesting. I have a message here that he came to Paris for a few days. He rented a hotel room not far from the train station. All right, so we've got 14 is our new character. Is probably going to be the secret admirer. So we'll put that there. And it says that he's in location I, which is a hotel room near the station. We don't have a whole lot of space, so I'm just going to put that there on top of the stack of locations. If we need to find another one, we will. And I have nothing else to ask him, so I'm going to go to that location and hopefully find this man. You find a hotel located not far from the train station. While looking for the room number, you come across a man, which is our number 14. And I'm going to go ahead and scan him to talk to him and see what's up. The man has a bruised face and his shirt is missing a few buttons. Can I help you with something? He asks. I'm in a hurry. We found him. All right, so remember in this game, you do not always need to have irrefutable proof or make the perpetrator admit their guilt. Usually a few clues and some logical reasoning are enough to answer the final questions. Right, it's important to know that we are not the police in this game. We are just journalists, and we're going to be publishing a newspaper article on whatever it is that we find out. So we're not trying to prove that someone is guilty. We just need enough evidence to sort of write a newspaper story. So as long as we can answer the questions at the end, we don't need to have anybody confess. We don't need to have any specific direct evidence, as long as it's clear enough and good enough. But while we're talking to him, I am going to ask him about the body. You see what he says, because I want to find out more motivation. Of course, he says they've never met. So let's ask him about Agnes. He also does not admit to meeting her. Okay, fine. Then let's scan this piece of jewelry because that's how we found out of his name. And he says he doesn't know anything. Great. How about clothes? It's clear that his clothes are messed up. The man looks visibly upset. Speech seems beyond him for a few moments. These look very similar to my own, I must admit. Where did you get them? You've proven that he was involved in the fight at the telegraph office. Congratulations. You can ask him to see a few questions to see how he reacts. If you want to close the case, go to the newspaper office and click the Solve Case button. All right, so let's ask him about Agnes now that he knows we know. Oh, right. You mean Agnes from the office here in Paris. We speak on the wire sometimes. I've sent her a few gifts and wanted to meet her, but not while I'm in the state, you know. All right, then let's ask him about the jewelry and the plants, because he sent her those jewelry and flowers. Ah, you mean the medallion? Yes, that was a gift I sent to Agnes. I wanted to meet her today, but look at me. I can't see her in this state. Okay, how about the plants? Ah, you mean the roses? I sent them to Agnes. Now I remember. All right, so the last thing I can do then is ask about the guy and see what he says. Oh yes, now I remember. He was the one who attacked me. I was coming back to the hotel after visiting a nearby bar. He jumped me and I had to defend myself. He ripped my shirt. So it sounds to me like Horace, who's always sort of been chasing after Agnes and really wanted to date her, I guess, found out about this secret admirer, got pissed off, and when the guy showed up at the office, he attacked him, and things turned into things, and well, I think that's good enough for us to solve this case for now. So let's go back to the newspaper office, and now we're going to solve the case, and I'll show you exactly how this works. I don't know if we have enough, but I'm going to try anyway. You're about to try to solve the case and end the game. Are you sure? Yes. Who killed Horace Granger? I believe that this guy killed Horace Granger. He says he didn't meet her, and he said he went to the office and was attacked. So I'm going to say it was him. And where is Agnes's admirer now? So the admirer is at the hotel that we were just at, so we're going to scan that location. And why did Agnes leave her work at the Granger's villa? Well, because Horace was relentlessly pursuing her. All right, so it says, good job. You were able to figure out who accidentally killed Horace Granger. You've also been able to locate his current whereabouts. Moreover, you've discovered the real reason Agnes left the Granger's villa and decided to pursue the career of telegraph operator. You have finished the tutorial scenario. You can choose to replay it by going to the main menu or have the whole case explained by tapping the solution button. Now you're ready for a real challenge. The full-length scenarios of Chronicles of Crime 1900. So that's the end of the scenario. You'll see here that it shows exactly my points. Because I did it faster than 12 hours, I got a bonus 30 points. I answered all of the questions correct. So the first one I got 40, the second one I got 30, the third one I got 30. Now anytime you use Charlotte's help, either for a hint or a solution, you lose 10 points each time. So we ended up with a more than perfect score because we did it quickly, 130 out of 100, and we've got 5 stars. Now, the other nice thing about this game is that once you've solved the case, if you've missed anything, but not enough to replay the case, right? You answered one question incorrectly, but the rest of it you already understood, so you're not going to play the case through one more time. You can press solution, and it will actually give you the story of the entire thing that happened. I'm not going to read through this right now because you've already seen the story, and I did solve the case perfectly in this case, but it is pretty cool that that is there. All right, so while we're here, let's take a look at all of the components. Basically, everything you saw is a component. I can't really show you anything much else without spoiling things or ruining things, specifically these puzzle cards. But that is a unique and interesting new addition to this version of the game, is that there are those physical puzzles like we solved with those Morse code cards. The artwork in this game is gorgeous. I really love how they're all sort of these painted portraits of the people. All of the locations are very beautifully illustrated. I really, really love the design and the look of the artwork in this game. It does take up a lot of space on the table if you sprawl everything out, but realistically, all you're doing is scanning things. So as long as you've got it organized in a way that you know where everybody is and where you need to go to talk to certain people or to look at certain things, it really doesn't matter how you lay things out on the table. I do like this idea that there's a half of the board for things that you're holding in your hand, and then things that you don't know where they are but that you know about, so you can still ask questions about it. Finally, the last thing that I do like to show in all of my reviews is a look at the insert of the box. And this one I really want to show you because they've done a wonderful job here in this game. So you'll see the puzzle cards fit perfectly down into this slot here, with all of the location boards on top of that. The evidence cards and the special item cards together fit perfectly in that slot right there. And then all of the character cards fit very well in that slot right there. There is a lot of wasted space in the box, but I imagine if you got all of these together, you could probably fit everything in the box as needed, to keep everything in one box rather than individually. But I just love the way that it holds everything perfectly nice. And on top of that, there's a really nice plastic cover that goes over the top of everything to make sure that nothing moves around at all when you've got it on your shelf, carrying it around in a bag, what have you. This evidence board folds up into sort of what looks like a really nice leather portfolio case. And everything just fits very nicely into the box. So I am a huge fan of what they've done with the insert here, and this is true for all of the Chronicles of Crime games that I've seen so far. I really like what they're doing here. With all that being said, that's it for the components. Meet me back up top and I'll let you know what I think about the game. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the playthrough. This one's going to be a little bit of an interesting review for me because I've got somewhat of a history with the Chronicles of Crime series. When I first saw the original game on Kickstarter, I immediately sent an email to my father asking for the entire all-in Kickstarter package for Christmas that year. And when the game arrived, I tore into it, ready to dive in because I was really excited about the idea that this game was offering, right? And at first glance and first dive in, I really enjoyed what it was presenting. Using this unique app to scan cards, to interview suspects, move from location to location, having to scan the right cards with the QR code on the right cards to ask the right questions to the right people at the right time to sort of build this knowledge to solve the case. And then on top of that, using the app as a sort of real-time viewfinder into a world, sort of looking through the window of your screen, moving around and searching the actual crime scene. I just thought the idea was a whole lot of fun. The problem was, after I'd played one or two cases, there were some things about the game that just got to me and bothered me a little bit. The first thing is, as much as I love the app, the more I played it, the more I felt like this game could have really just been designed as an app and just clicking on cards on the screen rather than pulling out the cards and fiddling through, scanning the cards. And it did get a little bit fiddly for me. Now, it wasn't incredibly negative, but it was fiddly to a point that it wasn't something that I was immediately pulling back off of the shelf. The other thing that bothered me about the game is the sort of time limit aspect of it, that I could ask the wrong questions and then later ask the right questions, but because I had asked the wrong questions first, I had moved the timer or the in-game clock far enough forward that at the end of the game I ran out of time to ask more of the right questions in order to completely solve the game. So this combination of this constant stress of a clock that I'm racing against, plus the idea of this constantly scanning cards and digging through decks of cards to find the one to scan, to put out, it just was enough that I sort of, unfortunately, let the game sit on the shelf and not get played. I never got a chance to try out more. I never got a chance to try out Welcome to Redview, and I just ended up trading away the entire package. So when I got a chance to review this new version of the game, I had a better look at it. I looked a little bit closer and I saw that this one is introducing that unique puzzle aspect with those cards that sort of work like an escape room game. And I'm a huge fan of escape room. I love the Exit series. I love the Unlock series. And I've played a couple more of these other sort of lesser known titles in that genre. And I'm a big fan of solving those sort of logical puzzles or working through those escape room games. So when I saw that was added to this, it made me feel like maybe that was the perfect addition that would convince me that this worked better as a board game and wouldn't be better off just as an app. So I definitely jumped at the opportunity to grab a review copy of this game just to give it one more chance and to see how things changed in this version and whether or not it would make me feel differently about the game. I have now played through everything that's available for this game right now. So I've played through all of the 3 currently available cases. I won the first one with a score of 80 on my first try. I failed the second one with a score of 50 and then played again and won with a score of 100. And then I finished the third game with a score of 90 and probably could have been 100 if I had paid more attention to the one question that I got incorrect. So I've played completely the package that I have right now, aside from the one case that won't be released until the game is physically released in retail. And I have to say that I'm still a little bit of a mixed bag on this, but much more on the positive side than I was before. So addressing the original problems that I had with the game. Scanning the QR codes, digging through the cards is still a little bit fiddly, but it was never that big an issue to me. It was just sort of the extra little thing that pushed it over the edge and made it so that I didn't get it to the table to get played. So it's still a little bit of an issue here, but not really. Yes, it could be an app, but the physicality, in this case, the artwork on these cards is beautiful. It's definitely still a board game. It's definitely worth having these cards. But the biggest thing for me is that timer. And the main reason I lost that second case the first time with a 50 is because I was really sort of struggling to find the right pathway, to ask the right questions, to find the information that I needed to solve the puzzle. And eventually I ran out of time and I had to get to the end and I had to answer the questions with the information that I had available to me at that time. And unfortunately, I didn't have the right information to ask the specific or answer the specific questions that were being asked of me. Now, the second time I played, I had more idea of which things were good to do and which things were not so great to do, and more importantly, the order that things should be done to be most effective and efficient. And when I did it that way, I scored 100 on that scenario. So the big thing here for me is that the timer is still a stressful push. But 2 things. Number 1, I've gotten more accustomed to it. I understand, or at least I've come to an understanding that it's going to be there. It's going to stress me out if I let it stress me out. So I've tried to back off a little bit and just sort of play through it as a story, as if it was something I was actually working through in real life. And with that in mind, if I fail, so be it. That's the way that the story played out. And there's nothing stopping me from going back in, as I did on that second case, and enjoying it better the second time because of what I've learned from the first time. I still have that puzzle solving. I still have that investigative piece of the game that even if I lose or do poorly the first time, I can go back and do more of. The other thing, though, that is still negative for me is this idea of the order of things. And that's why the timer bothers me to some extent. It costs you 20 minutes in-game to move from location to location. And sometimes it's worth not even interviewing somebody at a location because they're not going to give you that much information. Or maybe they won't give you enough information until something else has already been done and then you come back again. The problem is, if I'm jumping back and forth between locations trying to figure that out, I'm going to run out of time pretty quickly. So what that does is it makes me feel like, especially someone like me who's wants to know everything and wants to ask every question and wants to be somewhat of a completionist with the information. It makes me feel like I should stay at a location and do absolutely everything I can before moving. But that's also not the best thing to do because every time I ask a question, I'm running out the clock. So I really have to be careful about what I'm asking and when I'm moving from location to location, but not moving that often. So if I do play a second time, it's definitely helpful because I can sort of figure out what that flow is and what the best pathway is. But it's a little bit annoying or a little bit less fun that I need to know that path in order to win the game sometimes. And that's not always true. That only happened once in my playthrough of these 3 scenarios. So it's not a huge deal. And like I said, I am coming more to grips with the idea that I can just sort of let the time go by, and if I win, I win, and if I lose, that's fine. I still do really love solving a case, and that was the reason I got into the game in the first place back when it was originally on Kickstarter, because the idea of taking clues and piecing them together to solve a puzzle and answer questions and start unraveling this information and unraveling this sort of secret story that's going on in the background is a whole lot of fun, and it's really, really fulfilling to me when I'm able to do that. And as I mentioned, I do really like escape room games. So with the addition of these physical puzzles, I am happy to say that the physical puzzles really do add enough of a flavor and enough of a physicality to the game that it does really make me excited to try the next one. And it really does, it doesn't fix everything 100%, but it definitely adds enough to the game that it makes it fulfilling to me and it makes it interesting, more interesting to me. Now, these puzzles in there are not always the most creative or the most logically difficult puzzles. If you've played a lot of escape room games, these are probably not going to be all that challenging for you. I didn't use any clues while I was playing through. I only asked once to find out if I had all of the pieces I needed to solve a puzzle because I wasn't sure. But otherwise, they weren't all that difficult, but they were still really fun to solve. And it was really fun to be able to have physical things in front of me that I was able to look at and refer to as I was solving the puzzle. So I thought that was a great addition to the game. Another thing I did like about this game is because you're not a police officer, because you are playing as a journalist, you don't have that pressure like you did in the original game where I had to make sure that I asked the hacker about the tech stuff and I had to ask the forensic guy about the sort of sciencey stuff and I had to always make sure I was using the information that I got in the right way. But in this case, because I'm not a police officer and I don't have any sort of access to those kinds of unique tools, basically all I'm doing is asking people questions about things that I saw. And that sort of took away some of the pressure of the time for me to decide exactly how best to use the information. I could just have conversations with people about things, learning piece by piece, and then realizing I should talk to somebody else about that same thing. And I really like that. So this game definitely adds a lot to the game that I like, and it's definitely improved the system for me. There are still small things like the timer that does bother me a little bit, but overall it's not that big a deal, and I'm very excited to get back into that final case when it is released and to try out more stuff, to just try more and learn more. There is one more small thing that I should mention, and this is sort of just a word of advice. I don't want to give any spoilers, I don't want to ruin anything, but it's very important because one thing that did also mess me up on that first playthrough of the second scenario is that when you have item cards in those red spaces, that means you actually have physically access to those items. You need to think about those items as if you are actually holding on to them and you can actually do things with them. Because I wasn't thinking of actually physically holding or owning or being able to use those items for things, I ended up missing something that I should have known or should have triggered that would have made all of the rest of the case a whole lot more cohesive or make more sense to me. So definitely make sure that you're paying attention to the difference between the cards that are in the blue section that you know exist and the cards that are in the red section that you actually have sort of physical connection to. So with all that being said, I would definitely recommend checking out this game. If you enjoyed the original game, definitely check this one out because I think what it adds and what it twists makes it even better than it was before. If you didn't enjoy the original game for some of the same reasons I didn't, and you are a fan of escape room games, definitely give this one a shot because I think it might tweak things just enough that it'll pull you back in. Having played this now, I definitely want to go back and try some of the other expansions that I didn't get a chance to, and even go back to the original base game and play through some of the scenarios that I never got to play through. Because once I got past the problems I had with the game, there's a really good story in here. The puzzles and the clues and the sort of deduction that needs to go into this game is a whole lot of fun, and I want to play more of these games. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please remember to like and subscribe below, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.